The last two seasons, the Texas State versus Arkansas State game has ended with a blowout win for the home team. So my question this week is, can the Texas State Bobcats go into Fayetteville and break the trend? Welcome to Wizard Wednesday. I'm your host, Zach. It's good to be talking three keys to victory again. I hope everyone had a nice, relaxing bye week where they got to watch some different football, maybe watch some Sun Belt games, maybe watch the Arkansas State game like I did to kind of scout and see what we're up against this year. But yeah, so we're back into the three keys. At the top, we talked about potentially this being a trend-breaking game for the Bobcats, and I think that everything sets up that way. I think that we have a really good shot at winning this game on the road and breaking that blowout trend. But I do think there are some things we need to take care of. I do think that there are, these three keys that I've identified based on the past, not only just this past Arkansas State game, but I went ahead and watched the last two games as well, just to see if they played us any differently on defense last year. And then I looked to try to figure out what they're doing this year as well. So let's dive right in with the first key. Key number one is make Jaylen Rainer beat you. Now, that's not something I expected to say coming into this week, but after watching last year's game, the year before, after watching his performance this year, I think that his game is or can be a little bit one-dimensional, especially if he's not using his legs effectively, and he didn't last week. But I also think that he has tendencies that we could exploit on defense. Specifically, he loves to live right over the middle in the intermediate paths, intermediate to deep paths, right? So I think that what we really need to do is have very good linebacker play at that second level, take away those dink and dunk type throws, and force him to the outside. If he's going to make deep throws, if he's going to get the ball rolling and have explosive plays, I would much rather that happen to us on the outside rather than deep down the middle, because it seems, looking at his PFF grades, which I know can be flawed, but I looked at him over the past few years, his highest graded throws are between, I'd say, like 5 to 15 yards downfield in the middle, right? So that is where typically in our defense, you're going to have a couple linebackers, maybe a nickel there. So those guys are going to have to be really good in pass coverage. Those guys are going to have their head on a swivel to make sure that any type of intermediate crossing routes are covered up. It also presents an opportunity for interceptions. He actually threw an interception last week against ULM in the middle of the field because that's his preferred area to throw to. He wants to get it, 5-10 yards down the field right in front of him. So we have to take that away. And on top of that, I think that you almost have to bait him into throws that are outside the numbers deep. I think there are opportunities there. He's not necessarily graded great on those throws. And so I think that's what you have to do. That means playing up, loading the box a bit, making sure that you are getting him to be a little bit more one-dimensional. Don't give him a good running offense to play off of. No, we need to be in the box. We need to stop things right down the middle. And we need really good linebacker play this week if we're going to slow him down. Just some numbers on the year. He is 6 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. He's been sacked 15 times on the year. 7 of those happened last week. So he got hit quite a bit. In fact, he was the lowest graded offensive player for the team against ULM. He may have been the lowest graded player total. That is not typical for him. He had a very, very poor game. So I do think that he is going to have a lot of bad film to watch and improve from. That being said, what do you do when you have a bad game? You usually try to rely on the things that have worked in the past. And in the past, what's worked for him is those intermediate passes in between the numbers. So that's what I think he's going to try to do to us. I think if you can get to him, if you continue the trend of, if you hit him 7 times, if you get 7 sacks, he's going to be off base. He's not going to be able to do what he wants to do. So good linebacker play and making Jaylen Rainer beat you is the first key. Second key is another defensive key. I know. I'm going defense, defense. Will the third one also be defense? Probably not, but who knows? Anyways, so the second key is going to be ready for the jet sweep and any type of reverses. They tried to do this to us last year. It's a staple of their offense. I haven't seen it have a lot of success, to be honest with you. I was trying to find, reasons why they continue to do this. Maybe it's because they're not comfortable in their downhill running game, that inside zone. Maybe they're trying to, make sure that the defense is having to account for the edges and making sure that, the linebackers are trying to set the edge. Maybe they're running them so the linebackers are worried and they'll, get outside the numbers and Jaylen Rainer can throw it down the middle. Maybe that's part of it. But they certainly love to use it and they love to set it up, right? So they'll start early in the game, the little jet sweep, have their receiver come in motion, jet sweep across the field, trying to get to the edge and break it. It's not always successful, but they still do it because later on in the game, they love to do the little reverse thing, right? So the little, you pitch it to your jet sweep, you have another guy coming the other way, you pitch it back to him, maybe you pitch it back to Jaylen Rainer and you try to hit a big play action, catch our safeties sleeping, coming downhill, trying to set the edge. We have to be ready for that. Last year, they did it with Malik Hornsby, former Texas State quarterback turned wide receiver at Arkansas State. They tried that. We bottled it up. We were ready. So we got to be ready for it. We've seen it before. We saw it at home. I don't know why we wouldn't be ready for it this year, but that is a staple of their offense, and they're going to try to catch us sleeping there. So we have to make sure that we have good eye discipline on defense. We have to make sure that our linebackers are playing disciplined, making sure that we're not getting too wide and leaving the middle of the field open. It also means that the DBs might have to make some plays. They might have to, tackle towards the boundary, which, DBs are not usually, or specifically cornerbacks are not usually known for their tackling. But that's just typical, not for Texas State. But typically, that's not going to be your best tackler on the field. So they're going to have to be engaged. They're going to have to make sure that they tackle well. And the defense is going to have to be ready for, the two sides of everything, right? The jet sweeps that are trying to make you get wide, and then Jaylen Rainer trying to hit crossing routes in the middle. Key number 3 is on the offensive side of the ball. Surprise, surprise. Made you wait for it. Maybe we'll get better retention because we'll talk about offense towards the end of this episode. But the key there, I think, for this offense, is specifically in the passing game, is make their safeties or put their safeties in conflict. And I'll explain what I mean by that, but I kind of need to work through what I've seen on film, and I need to get you there. So let's start off with what I've seen on film with them. I think they run a lot of pattern matching coverages. So pattern matching in that it's not a specified zone. It's kind of like what we talked about earlier this year with UTSA, and they're running palms and quarters. Basically on one side of the formation, usually towards the passing strength of the formation, they'll put 3 defenders over 2 receivers. And those 3 defenders will defend zones based on the release of the second receiver. So not the furthest wide receiver, that would be like the number 1 receiver, the interior receiver. They'll make decisions based off that, what they're supposed to do. So oftentimes Arkansas State will make this look like cover 1, in that they'll come out in base with 1 safety over top in the middle of the field. Looks like he's playing center field, but really what happens is he will start to shade towards that passing strength, and then they'll play some quarters or palms or something like that. On the other side of the formation, where you'd have usually if it's not passing strength, you'll have 1 isolated wide receiver over there. They'll play man-to-man, right? And where teams have had success and where we've had success is by using that passing strength side of the ball, the 2 receivers, to put their safety in conflict, in that we will run a good example of this was a play last year where we ran 2 post routes. So let's see if I can kind of draw this in the air like Disney style, right? So 2 post routes like that on one side of the ball, which made their both of the defenders go deep to cover that. They both ended up kind of like in the center of the field. And then on the other side of the field, we had Cole Wilson, who ran a shallow cross, but then turned it upfield into the area vacated by the safety, and I think it was a nickel that actually went over there. So we have to put them in conflict. We have to put too many people deep down the field, because this Arkansas State defense, from what I saw, and again, big disclaimer here that I've not played football. I've not been trained. This is an untrained eye that's looking at all this stuff. But what I've seen is that they're under defenders. So, your linebackers, your cornerbacks, a lot of the times are very disciplined, and they will stay under. They will not follow their receivers that they're covering deeper into the field. And so that means that they only have 1 to 2 people deep covering a lot of grass. And so we have to put those 2 people in conflict, which means that maybe we can't live underneath. Maybe we can't dink and dunk, but this might be an opportunity to win the game with explosive plays. With that, of course, we still have to run the ball. We can't be one-dimensional. And then there's a big caveat that a lot of teams this year have tried this like cover 4 thing, where they're just basically like capping the deep parts of the field. So like just splitting the deep parts of the field into quarters. So you'll have 4 guys covering that, and then a lot of room underneath to limit the explosive plays that we've been having. So if that happens, we need to have a plan B that we can quickly switch to. And usually that plan B is just run it down their throats. If you're going to send 4 guys deep, usually they have like 7 in coverage. So if you do the math, if 4 guys are deep, that leaves 3 people in coverage, which means that the box is probably pretty light. You're probably having like 5 or 6 in the box. And with our offensive line, with our tight ends, just run it down their throat until they cry mercy. They stop doing the cover 4 nonsense that Arizona State did to us, and others have tried. And then you start taking shots again. So it is kind of like, our offense at times can be a little bit like a boxer, in that you have to kind of body shot for a while, make them start covering their body, covering underneath. And as soon as their hands drop, as soon as they start dropping more guys into the box, less people, over the top, you take those shots. You put the safety in conflict. You make it to where he can't be right. You can't cover that much of the field if you're just 1 person or 2 people. So that's it. That's the 3 keys. If you're going to lose, you got to make Jaylen Rainer beat you deep. And if we lose that way, we lose that way. He has a great game, and it is what it is. The second is you have to be ready for these jet sweeps, these double pass, all this reverse type nonsense that they're going to try to, especially if they're not running the ball well, they'll try to make this an extension of the running game. Defense has to be ready for that. And then the offense has to put their safety in conflict if they want these explosive plays, if we want to beat them that way, right? If they give us something else, they give us something else. But what I've seen on tape is they're very susceptible to that type of stuff. Anyway, so thank you for watching. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. Did you watch the Arkansas State ULM game? It was not a pretty game. It really wasn't. Started out with a pick 6 from ULM, and then looked like Arkansas State was in good shape, and then they really fumbled the bag. But Jaylen Rainer had a really bad game. He's not going to have that bad of a game against us. It just won't happen. I think this is a game that Texas State should win. We're favored by a touchdown or more. It shouldn't be much of a problem, but you never know. This is the Sun Belt. Who knows what's going to happen? Be sure to follow us on all the socials at WinNowOrGetBent on X or Twitter, at WNOGB, Instagram, and TikTok. Appreciate all of you for listening, subscribing, commenting, and we will see you next week. This is kind of like against UTSA. I thought that we needed, if we were going to get beat, you let Owen Wilson beat you. I feel the same way about Jaylen Rainer. I think maybe he's a little bit better of a quarterback than Owen. Did I say Owen Wilson? I did. Owen McCown. Yeah. Anyways,